Hey there, and welcome back to the show. Tonight we're going to talk about Masters of the Universe. Was it as good as the 80s cartoon? I'll let you know right after this. Prince Adam grows up in Eternos, the capital of Eternia, where he and his friend Teela train under Duncan, Teela's father and chief of the Royal Guard. The world is shattered when Skeletor launches a brutal assault on the city. So before we get into this, hit that like button if you enjoyed the 80s cartoon, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe just as much as I did. So the director of this film is Travis Knight. He also did Bumblebee. The cast: Nicholas Galestine played Prince Adam and He-Man, Camila Mendes played Teela, Idris Elba played Duncan / Man-at-Arms, and Jared Leto as Skeletor. The budget of this film was reportedly between $170 and $200 million. So right off the rip, there was a lot of nostalgia with the characters that you know and love. I just kind of sat there in the theater and I started seeing some people pop up, and I'll go into a second, and it was just so exciting. Like right off the rip, I was like, yes, this is awesome. So getting into the core heroes, we had Prince Adam and He-Man, we had Teela, Duncan, the Sorceress, King Randor, and Queen Marlena. Some of the supporting characters were Roboto, Fisto, Ram-Man, as well as the young Prince Adam. Getting into the villains, the main villain was Skeletor. We had Evil-Lyn, Beastman, Trapjaw, but I also saw Spikor, Mossman, and others. The opening sequence in Eternia was really pretty well done. I thought right off the rip that this movie was going to be very epic. The way the score, the music, some of the dramatics that came into the first time you were introduced to Skeletor, all that felt really, really good. There was a tremendous fight between Man-at-Arms and Trapjaw right at the beginning of this film. When they introduced Trapjaw, he was extremely menacing looking. I mean, I was like, wow, this is a very serious character. He never even looked that serious back in the day. I had a little character of him. I had one of the toys when I was growing up, and I never really thought him as menacing, but they did really good with his transformation of his arm and how it manipulated his different weapons, and it really was a story-altering piece of the movie. The cast was pretty good for the most part. We'll talk about that some more, but Jared Leto's Skeletor, I found myself really enjoying. It was a different type of voice. You know, he didn't have that high-pitched voice that you knew back in the 80s cartoon, but he had a more deep, darker, sinister voice. But he did it with this nice blend of humor and overall quirkiness. So he was like menacing and scary and strong and imposing, but then also this humor and this quirkiness side that Jared Leto brought to the role, and I thought he did really well with that. I really enjoyed the Sorceress. The Sorceress looked just like she did in the cartoon. You know, she was the eagle and kind of the same color palette and things of that nature, and she would transform. They really did good with the Sorceress in this. Looked just like the cartoon. Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain, they did these large panning shots, and they just looked epic. It looked just like what you remember in the cartoon. I was happy that they kept that all with integrity in the film. The music was pretty decent, on point for the most part. I mean, there was a lot of this older 80s type style of music and a more modern day tone. There was some quirky music that kind of worked in here and there, and some of it was over the top, but overall the music was fine. I'll tell you what, it was really cool to see young Adam transform into He-Man for the first time. That was really impressive. The CGI and everything all came together extremely well. They could have leaned into that a little bit more. That happened kind of later in the movie, and it was really a big epic moment. Overall, they leaned into a funnier tone, and that worked some of the time, but did seem to overstay its welcome. There was 3 post-credit scenes. Some people were reporting 2. When I was there, I saw 3. Definitely the second one was probably the coolest, so stay and check that out at the end of the film. There was an epic cameo at the beginning of this, and it took place in a gym. I'm not going to go into it, but that was on point. They really did good with that, and I think you'll find that pretty exciting as well. Hey there, if you made it this far, hit that like button. And while you're at it, you might as well subscribe to the channel. We're definitely trying to boost that algorithm. Now back to the show. So some of the exposition at the beginning of it was a little bit drawn out. I know that they're trying to kind of spoon feed the audience so they know what was going on. And they tried to find a clever way with Adam and the way they tried to work it into the story. But I thought it was a little bit over the top and a little drawn out. I also thought there was something that they were trying to work through with Man-at-Arms at the beginning. If you remember, I told you about the fight between Man-at-Arms and Trapjaw. Well, that kind of led to a whole series of events, and they were trying to work through what I consider to be like a post-traumatic sequence with Man-at-Arms, and it was cool at first, and it was like almost it took you back in your seats, but then it just kept going on and on and on. You just couldn't wait for them to kind of move past that a little bit. They went way out of their way to let you know that Adam was weak and clumsy, seemed to be a little bit overkill with that and the humor. In the show, when I watched it in the 80s, yes, Adam was weaker and he was a little bit clumsy, but they just went over the top in this movie with it, and it was to the point where it was almost too much at times. I'm like, okay, I get it. He's weak, he's silly, things of that nature. The one part with Cringer and Battle Cat. So Cringer, is a tiger, but then he turns into Battle Cat. There was one part where they kind of had that misaligned, and I was surprised. They did correct that at the very end of the movie, and it was really, really stunning when they got it right. But there was one point where they were kind of going into a battle where Adam told Cringer to do something, and I'm like, I don't know if that would have happened like that. Most of the jokes in it, they were trying to do the MCU Guardians of the Galaxy joke type of scenario, and most of them fell flat to me. I saw people laughing in the theater initially, and then by the end of it, everybody was kind of exhausted with it because they just kept going with it. I understand what they were going for, but it did start to seem like it was straining a little bit when they just kept leaning into that. The film very much looks like a Guardians of the Galaxy in certain sequences, and they have like these big battle scenes and ships and like all these old ships that kind of look like they've been rehashed. It really does get that Guardians of the Galaxy feel. Then they kind of back off, and it goes back to a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe feel, and that's where I was excited when you saw these large shots of Eternia. Stuff really looked good, but some of the battle scenes and some of the characters and stuff like that were not the main characters. It really did have that Guardians of the Galaxy feel. I didn't really care for Evelyn as much as I wanted to. I saw her. I really loved her in the 80s cartoon. She was really evil. She was like, Skeletor's number 2, and just very good, compelling character. But in this, she felt a little wooden to me. They did like a couple nods where you thought she was going to do something kind of evil and devious, but then it was just, they never really leaned into it. And I just really didn't get into her like I thought I would. Some of the special effects were really good, but some of them are really rough, and there's a part with Cringer that it made you want to cringe a little bit. You're like, wow, really, that's the direction they went? It just seemed a little bit tough. So now we're going to bounce this up against the plot point meter. So did you watch Masters of the Universe? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Please stay tuned for more content like this, and I will see you on the next one.